So this is what's going in to the truck. We got a huge high output alternator here by Brand X, and we're gonna go externally regulated.
Cause I just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big box, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient.
All right, so like that little intro suggests, we are going externally regulated on this truck. Excuse me. What was in here before was internally regulated. It was a Singer 320 internally regulated. And I had increased the charging voltage by putting diodes in the sense wire. I have some videos earlier on in my channel on how I did that. Jerry Ain't Loud also has really good videos up on how to do that. It's a pretty common modification that people make to their internally regulated alternators. MechMan and Brand X also make the little voltage boost plug with the little knob. That's basically just a diode plug with a potentiometer on it, right? Like all the same idea. You're sort of tricking your internal regulation by making your truck think that the voltage is lower than it actually is, by adding resistance to the sense wire, thus increasing the charging voltage. Anyway, that was fine while it lasted, but there are some problems that come with that. Like the difference between like a cold and a hot day would be like half a volt of charging, and the charging wasn't consistent. Like when I was on the gas, you know, when I was 2000 RPMs plus, my voltage would be high, 15.6, 15.7. But then as soon as I'd get off the gas and be at a stoplight, it would drop all the way back down to like a whole volt, like 14 and a half, 14, you know, something. And it would do that all the time. Like if I'm demoing, I'm sitting still, I'm not driving, obviously. And so I'd have to like be on the gas just to get my charging voltage up to where I wanted it to be. And so I'm hoping with externally regulated alternator, I can bypass the truck's computer altogether, and I can use my external regulator to tell the alternator what to do, basically, right? Like that's the whole point. So with that, I'm hoping I can keep my charging voltage a little bit more consistent than with the diode method. So that's why we're doing this. So this is the 475 XL case made by Brand X. This is the biggest alternator that they make for my truck, which is a 2010 Toyota Tundra with the 5.7 V8. Like I said, we did decide to go externally regulated on this one. But back to that, let's take a look at this here. They give you a birth sheet with this thing. It says this thing does 239 amps at idle at 800 RPMs. So that's pretty freaking awesome. And then once it's up to speed, we got 475 or 476, externally regulated, of course. And so they send you this plug with these little pigtails on it. Now I was kind of confused about what to do with these because there really aren't any instructions that indicate what those are for. All the instructions are for like plug types for their internally regulated model. So I just messaged Brand X and asked him, hey, where do these go? Okay, guys, so I got to cut in here for a minute and just explain something. Brand X, I have always had great experience with them. My the little go-kart, the Mitsubishi Mirage, has a Brand X 240 on it, I think. And that thing runs great. It's been on that car for 2 or 3 years now. Never had any problems with it. I've always had great customer service from Brand X. I really enjoy working with Brand X. But one criticism I will have is the instructions that they send you when you order an externally regulated alternator are terrible. They send you instructions for how to wire an internally regulated alternator with their various plugs and diodes and all that stuff. I messaged the owner, I think his name is Brandon. I messaged him, don't quote me on that. And if that's not your name, I'm sorry. And said, hey man, I don't have the instructions for this. So he actually mailed me another set of instructions, and it was the same instructions he'd sent me the first time, which it's like 2 pages explaining the internally regulated alternators with the GM plug and the voltage boost harness, and then there's just written on the paper, handwritten, it says black to field. So if you've never wired an externally regulated alternator before, which I have not, then you don't really, that's not very clear. There's a black wire and there's a green wire. Well, the green wire goes to nothing. The black wire is your field wire or your sense wire. It's what goes to the field module on the external voltage regulator. The green wire goes to nothing. If you ground that wire out, which is what I thought it was a ground, because I found some other diagrams from like MechMan and stuff where some of these do show that there's a ground, some of them don't. And so I assumed that was a ground. If you ground that wire, you will short your alternator out and you will ruin it, and then you will have to send it back to Brand X to have them fix it. Ask me how I know that. So anyway, Brand X, if you could change anything, give instructions specifically on how to wire an externally regulated alternator when somebody orders an externally regulated alternator. Other than that, you guys' company is really great. I'm going to keep ordering from you guys. You guys do a great job, but I do have one complaint, and it is that. So anyway, a lot of that footage I didn't get because I did hook up this alternator already, and I shorted it out and it burned up immediately. And then me and Brand X were in message chains like, hey, what the heck happened? And then he explained to me how to wire it, but that's only after the fact, right? Like, the instructions really should be more clear. Anyway, now that we got that all figured out, here's the rest of the video. So then this is their externally regulated module as well. You've got a little case that comes off. You got these little screws that hold it in place. Thing is pretty easy to follow. It's all, pretty easy labeled, right? You've got AGM, LTO, CMAX, right? You just got this little jumper that you can choose which type of battery you're trying to charge. Basically, this just changes the voltage, like bottom, right? Like this charges at the lowest. This one charges in the middle, like 15s, and CMAX charges like high 15s, low 16s. And then it's got this little knob here that you can kind of fine tune where you want it to charge at. Pretty sweet feature, right? You can just set it and kind of forget it, and you don't have to worry about this knob moving around and your voltage jumping up and down, right? And then these are pretty easy to follow, right? Ignition, ground. Now this is not the sense wire that goes here, right? This is your field. This, you can run 4 alternators off of this. We're just gonna run 1, right? This is your field wire, and that's what connects here. I think he said this attaches to your the battery bank that you're charging. I don't know. He does have a video up on YouTube that explains what all of this does. So I'll link that in this video as well, but pretty impressive unit just looking at it, right? Like this set point thing that he has here is a pretty awesome feature because it basically sets the range that your voltage is going to sit between. That way when you're basing, this knob doesn't like move around, cause your voltage to drop or spike up, which is a problem with some modules. Oh, and this, that attaches to your battery, right? I'm gonna put a 4 gauge on this. But anyway, that's what's going in the truck, guys. So there are plenty of videos on how to change out the alternator on a 2010 Toyota Tundra with the 5.7 liter engine. We're not going to get into that here. Basically, long story short, it is a pain in the butt. You got to pull the passenger side tire. The alternator is on the bottom of the engine. It's a pain. It sucks. I hate doing it. But we did that. I didn't show any of that. If you want to know how to do that specifically, there are videos on YouTube on how to do it. We're just not going to address that here. All right, we're on the passenger side of my truck. And I think a perfect place for that external regulator is right in there. It's just big enough to fit it, and I'll show you guys how that fits right in there. And I know there is a firewall grommet right behind this dash. And so if I plumb all my wires through here, it should be pretty easy access to get to it on the other side and then route it wherever it goes. Okay guys, so let me show you what we got going here. Excuse me. Wow, okay. So we had to pull the glove box, had to pull the airbag to get to this top glove box here. Let's move that away, okay. So I put a little grommet in the side there, as you can see. Just drilled out a hole, put a grommet in there, pretty easy. Right, and so that's gonna fit right in there like that. And this goes up in here, right, like I showed you guys. And so I took all the wire I'm gonna use and just plumbed it through the dash so that it can go through that grommet right there. Right, we got every color that we're gonna need. It runs right there, right through that, kind of up in here, right? And then out through, oh, almost dropped it. Out through that right there, right? It's all coming out right here. So then I have plenty of lead to run it wherever I need. So as you can see, I've got the my field wire and my ground wire, and then I've got this other one right here. Everything's all loomed up, right here. So my big 4 gauge that's powering the unit is gonna go here with a fuse. And then this is my remote turn on, which I'm gonna hook up to a relay coming out of the fuse box. And then this one is just the other sense wire that in his video he says to attach to your battery source. So again, that one is also gonna go right here. So we got that pretty much wired. Now let me show you what I have in here. Right, I got my dash put back together. We got all this coming out of here, right? Like, looks nice and neat. Got that grommet, right? And you can see this is gonna go right in there, right? Nice and hidden. Obviously gonna cut all these off and put some terminals on them, and then they'll be ready to go right in there. So anyway, coming along, looks pretty neat and incognito, which is the way I like to have this type of stuff. Check this out, guys. Looks like it belongs in there. Look at that. That was kind of tough to get in there. I didn't really have a ton of room to like run a screwdriver or anything. And I did have to chop this ear off because then it wouldn't let me close it. But that's not a big deal because I just drilled another mounting hole right there. But look at that. We got all our wires going through our grommet. Got our sense wire up here. Boom. Right? I can still get in here with my screwdriver on my the little knob that'll adjust the voltage. Pretty freaking sweet, guys. Check it out. External voltage regulator. Tucked away nice and neat. Love it. All incognito. Now we're going to have some real power that we can send to these amplifiers and keep our voltage nice and strong. All right, so guys, check this out. We got it installed. We're getting a solid mid 15s. If we give it a little gas, 15.7. Now before I cranked it over, I did use my battery charger to just make sure this was topped off. That is in the instructions that Brand X gives you, is to make sure your battery is fully charged before you fire it up. So I did do that. Left it on there overnight. All right, we've got the regulator all wired up. Blue lights, blue lights. We got the jumper right on the LTO. Right, so we should be charging in the high 15s, which we are. Thing looking pretty in there. See? Oh yeah. And as you can see, I've got my sense wire running from that. Oh, there it is. From down here. That grommet, that great big firewall grommet, running down here in this line, running right there, right into the plug there. See it right there? Oh, and then you can see the unit. I've got it grounded. That voltage regulator grounds right here down to a grounding spot right here on the frame. So seems to be working. Right, we got the great big 4-aught cable, dives down there, goes under the truck. All right, you can see it all plumbed up right there, and then goes up to the alternator right there. This is the factory alternator plug. I put an aftermarket plug here so I could put my diodes in it. And this is the factory alternator charging wire that goes up to the fuse box. I got a plan for this, but I'll bring you guys back to that kind of once I figure out what I'm going to do with it. But everything seems to be working appropriately. Right, we're still at 15.6 and we're at idle. Right, we're at less than 1,000 RPMs, and if I give it a little bit of gas, right, and we don't get those huge fluctuations. Remember with the diode harness, I'd give it a little gas and it would ramp up to like 16 volts, and then as soon as I would let off the gas or put it into gear, it would dump like a volt, like it would drop down to like 14s. And this doesn't seem to be doing that. Right, I'm gonna have to take it for a test drive before we really know that, but all seems good right now. So I gotta say I'm pretty happy with this thus far. Like I said, the jury's still out. I gotta take it for a test drive, but we'll see, guys. I'll bring you guys back for that. So while we had everything pulled apart, I just used that as an opportunity to sort of clean up some of the wires that were already there. And so here's what we came up with. You know, like once everything's all pulled apart, you might as well put it back together the way you want it. You might as well make the changes that you want while it's all pulled apart. So we also took care of some of that. Here's what we've been working on. You know, since I'm getting all this cleaned up under here, everything's ran now. I mean, I just gotta like loom it up. I mean, not loom it up, like just secure it, right? Like that's just kind of hanging there, so is that. But everything's kind of ran the way that it needs to be. So I'm using that, the fact that I have all this pulled apart, as an opportunity to just clean all this up, right? I used the top of my battery lid to make myself a little battery delete here. Right, that came out pretty good. Used some little self-tappers and just drilled it right into the sheet metal there. Obviously our positive and our negative. You can see here, we got the starter wire, and then where is it? Oh, right here. We got the hot going to the fuse box of the truck. That one's not connected yet. Got a couple grounds here, right? And then we redid this all up here. I'm gonna get rid of this one and switch it to this smaller one that has a little bit more waterproof case. I got a new block here. I'm just not crazy about those ill customs ones. So I got one new here, and we're gonna keep that SMD. So you can see this is coming off my alternator, right? We got our two runs going to the back. These two go to the lithium that's in the back. And then here, right here, this one, it's coming from the back up to the front. That's gonna run into this block, right? My two mids and highs amps are right here. My relay for my voltage regulator is right here. I'm gonna run just a little hot wire from here to here. Right. So I also wanted to just clean everything up, right? All of this was just kind of a jumbled mess, like back in here, running on the firewall, zip tied to this, zip tied to that. And frankly, it looked ugly. And if you ever had to service that master cylinder or any of this, like, it would have been a nightmare. So I've got it fastened to my engine cover here, and then everything else is just going to be zip tied next to it, right? So that's not going to go anywhere. That's not just draped over the engine. It is secured. And I got rid of a couple of my grounds, right? Like my mids and highs grounds now go down on the frame, right? You can see them right there. And then I got frame grounds right there. All right, so just cleaning everything up. And I also replaced this. This is some PVC. I think it's PVC. Acrylic maybe? Anyway, plastic of some kind, right? So that this can get wet. What I had before was just a piece of MDF, which we all know that's a big no-no, because you know, if you get MDF wet, it's gonna swell up. So this was what was in there before. Now I can like detail under my hood and not have to worry about stuff getting wet and getting ruined. And when I'm at a show, I can, you know, get me a little hood prop, let people see what's going on under there, and it doesn't look like an absolute nightmare. So anyway, that's where we're at. All I really have left to do up here is just cut these to length, get them in right here. That way they all kind of look nice and matchy and clean and tidy. So let me get that done, and then I'll bring you guys back. Which, another good thing I didn't get a ton of video on, which I really apologize, is how I hooked up the remote turn on to the voltage regulator. It does have a remote turn on terminal, just like an amplifier does, where when that pole sees 12 volts, the unit turns on. Now you can hook that up to a switch, like a toggle switch, but then you just have to remember to turn it on and off, which I didn't want to do that. I hooked mine up to a switched fuse in my fuse box. So let me show you that. Right, so we have a, right here, this is a fuse tap going into my fuse box from my truck, and you basically just have to find a circuit that only comes on when you turn the key on. Again, there are videos on YouTube on how to do that. You basically just use a conductivity tester and you just test your fuse links and see which one you want to use. It's not real difficult. And then I just used a fuse tap. You can buy them on Amazon, probably get them at AutoZone. And that turns this relay on, right? Like my fuse tap turns this relay on, which then is what sends a signal up to my voltage regulator and turns my voltage regulator on. So again, I didn't have a ton of video on myself doing that. I apologize, but basically I have a remote turn on and a fuse tap that comes on when the truck turns on. When the truck turns on, it switches this relay on. Then the relay turns my voltage regulator on. That's how that works. So then when I turn the truck off, the voltage regulator turns off. See, check it out, guys. Now we're coming to a complete stop, and my voltage isn't dropping like it used to do when I had those diodes in there. Right, we're still sitting at high 15s. So the external regulator really seems to be accomplishing what I was wanting it to accomplish, right? We're at 0 miles an hour. We're stopped at a stoplight. And when I had those diodes in there, every time I would stop, it would drop down to like 14s. And then I would give it some gas. And then it would jump back up to the 15s and just stay there. But I had to be, the engine had to be moving at like 2,000 RPMs for me to get the voltage that I wanted, right? So it looks like, see, we're at another stoplight, and you can see our voltage only fluctuated from 15.6 to 15.8 instead of 14.5 to 15.5, right? So anyway, it looks like this was a success. It looks like external regulator is definitely the way to go. Well, that's the video, YouTube family. I appreciate you guys watching my stuff. I really do. I know it's been a while since I posted anything, but you know, life gets busy. So, but the voltage regulator, the external regulation seems to be working properly. And I like it. It seems like a good upgrade. And so if it's something you want to do to your vehicle, I hope this video helps you out and gives you some inspiration to try it yourself. Thanks for watching, guys.
Hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big box, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient. Who's at the top?